Hello world. It's Sunday, February the 24th, 2019. Present time, 9 minutes until 2 in the afternoon. I've got some things going on today. Clothes are in the dryer, and I discovered this morning, much to my disappointment, that there have been assignments that slip through the cracks. It's ongoing. Some time into those today. Ali hung out with. He's asking for a ride to Walmart. I've got to balance some time. Yeah. We'll see what I can. I'm going to pull up today's reading so I can dive in. Hey. Wait. Nikki or Nietzsche? Start. Finish. Oh. Hey. Welcome back. I'm going to dive into this momentarily.
Nikki Hodgson.
Oh my lord, that was loud. Okay, it's Nikki. Oh, my poor ears. Alright. Let's begin. In a moment. Actually, the elevator is going to keep on running. I'm just going to ignore it. The Curious History of Dating by Nikki Hodgson. The Curious History of Dating from 2017 guides readers through the history of dating and relationships in the United Kingdom. From the formal dances and rules of the 1700s to the growth of online dating in recent years, this book shows that dating and finding true love has always been a difficult affair. But thankfully, today it's easier than ever before. Who should read this? Non-Brits confused about the etiquette for dating a Brit. Long-term couples looking for some history-based date inspiration, and curious fans of British social history. Who wrote the book? Nikki Hodgson is a British journalist, broadcaster, and author based in London. She regularly contributes to news outlets such as The Guardian, Vice, and The Daily Telegraph, specializing in topics such as sexual politics, dating, and technology. Her first book, Bound to You, was published in 2012. What's in it for me? Get to grips with the romantic history of British dating. Pairing up, whatever your sexuality, has always been an important facet of human existence. and the British are just as bad at it as everyone else, if not worse. In this book, you'll get an overview of how British attitudes toward dating have changed over the last 300 years. Understand the cultural history of British dating, and you'll see just what sort of baggage it comes with today. From prosaic newspaper ads and stilted London balls through to selecting a potential match with a swipe across a screen, the British have come a long way. But while the method has changed, a class-conscious attitude to dating remains to this day. Here, you'll gain insight into the history of British dating and how the British are tuned to interact socially. In these blinks, you'll learn the unseemly origin of the word jazz, the acceptable grounds for divorce in 1930s United Kingdom, and until what year the World Health Organization classed homosexuality as a mental illness. Status marriages were the norm in the 1700s, before the early Victorian era made romance more acceptable. When we look back at the history of interaction between men and women in the United Kingdom, some of it sounds very quaint, and some of it sounds very familiar. Just consider the phenomenon of courtesy manuals, which found a readership right up to the end of the 17th century. These were read by men, the pickup artists of their day, so that they could charm their way into a lady's knickers. But times are changing. But times were changing. It was the age of Jane Austen, and if you're familiar with her novels, you'll know that marriages in the late 1700s were rather more concerned with social status and money than with love. If both parties scored those assets, then you'd have a good marriage on your hands. The consequences for courting were clear. Instead of lightweight sweet talk, men started appealing directly to women's, or perhaps their fathers' reasoning. Your best assets were respectable character and robust bank account. Consequently, people's attitudes toward dating changed. They knew what they wanted and what they could offer. Before long, the number of Lonely Hearts ads in the daily press multiplied. Of course, the wealthy did not resort to placing ads. They had this in London. It ran from March to June and was stuffed full of balls and galas. Families sent their daughters along to be seen in public and snapped up by potential husbands. They were pretty stiff affairs. Dress rules and codes of conduct were strict. The slightest slip-up might result in a young woman being overlooked for the rest of the season. Thankfully, such status-led dating gave way to romance in the 1800s. This change of attitude was partly sparked by Queen Victoria's very public affection for her husband, Prince Albert. She even proposed to him. Valentine's Day cards also took off in this period. Though they're now considered a classic romantic gesture, it was the arrival of cheap paper and new printing techniques that helped popularize them. In 1836, 60,000 cards were sent in Britain, rising to an incredible 400,000 in 1840. The introduction of a cheap public postal service meant their numbers tripled again by 1871. However, this new romancing was still heavily influenced by gender and class norms. A lady of high rank could hardly elevate a lower-class lover through marriage. That liberty was only allowed to gentlemen. Queen Victoria broke with tradition by being a woman who proposed to her partner on a day other than Leap Day, February 29th. Cultural shifts in the late 1800s and early 1900s liberated both women and men. In 1870, the Marriage Property Act came into effect, and its repercussions were huge. Before then, whatever a woman owned or inherited automatically became the property of her husband after marriage. No longer. The gender balance in romance still existed, but it was not quite so lopsided anymore. For starters, the late Victorian period saw plenty of new romantic freedoms, not least the new forms of transport. We take travel for granted, but back then, The arrival of the bicycle and the steam train meant that the pool of potential partners suddenly expanded. You could now have a lover in another town. And of course, trains and train stations were places where men and women could legitimately spend their time in close proximity. Bicycles were especially important in the emancipation of women. They meant women could finally travel freely alone, even if this newfound liberty sent some self-righteous tongues wagging. Another mark arrived in 1861. The Offences Against the Person Act removed the death penalty for anal intercourse, or what the Brits called buggery. That said, those engaging in homosexual acts could still be imprisoned. It took a while for the implications of these acts to filter through, but by the Edwardian era in the early 1900s, the upper classes were keen to live it up a little. Queen Victoria's son Bertie, the future King Edward, was the center of aristocratic revelry. About the same time, ragtime music and a host of associated dances made their way over from America. The dance hall became a popular venue for dressing up and being seen, especially for the lower classes. From the United States, too, came the buccaneer brides. These were heiresses looking for husbands among the British elite, much like the fictional Lady Cora in the TV series Downton Abbey. They came because London society was more porous than New York's, and also because the Americans' more laid-back style proved popular with British men. In this changing milieu, a more liberated class of women emerged. These were the new women. They happily had their own hobbies. They smoked, drove, and even wore more masculine clothes. They also weren't afraid to demand education and sexual equality. The suffragettes of the early 20th century were new women incarnate, as they set about demanding the vote and equality for women. The law had ruled in love's favor. The First World War advanced female independence, and the London party scene followed hot on its heels. In August of 1914, the First World War broke out. 30 women in the town of Folkestone in the south of England began distributing white feathers to men not wearing a military uniform. It was a snub to the men, a symbol of surrender and cowardice. With that act, they started a trend that went countrywide. The intended message was clear. Women were to be passive in this war, and men were there to protect them. However, the propaganda failed to live up to the realities of war, which altered gender dynamics. The start of the war had seen the onset of khaki fever, as young women fell head over heels in love with uniformed men across the country. But then, the men were dispatched to the trenches, while the home front, agriculture, and manufacturing were left in the women's capable hands. Women now had to move more and work comfortably. Consequently, masculine was favored among women. The dynamics of dating changed too. During the war, massive quantities of letters were exchanged between soldiers and loved ones as dating adapted to the circumstances. Up to 20,000 bags of mail were sent to soldiers in France every day. Thankfully, the horror of war came to an end. As a response, the 1920s proved to be much more liberal. That mood was reflected in the music. Jazz from America was all the rage in Europe, while associated dances like the Charleston, the shimmy, and the vampire kept feet tapping in popular London clubs. Of course, the name of the genre itself was also risque. Jazz was African American slang for sexual intercourse. It wasn't the only new terminology. The 1920s was the era of the flapper. Once the term had simply meant prostitute, but now it was associated with girls wearing short skirts and short haircuts, living on a heady mix of cocktails and cocaine. But of course, not everyone could revel in such luxuries. Many poor, working-class people were saddled with caring for war-traumatized husbands and sons. To them, the carryings-on of the rich were little more than an affront to public decency. The 1930s saw the cinema become a dating favorite, and women's independence increased further. Although marriage rates among women had dipped during wartime and the early 1920s, the 1930s saw them buoyant once more. The average age for tying the knot even fell to around 25 for women and 27 for men. That may seem like positive news, but the Great Depression meant that life generally was one of poverty and mass unemployment. In short, dating had become a luxury. And on top of that, unemployed men were resentful of women with jobs, and that wasn't exactly a recipe for romance. But for those with the means, this was the era when the classic date was born: going to the cinema. In 1914, there were nearly 3,000 cinemas in Britain. By 1939, there were 5,000, and discounted tickets were available for the unemployed. Films were the perfect place for young couples to get some alone time. After all, classics of the era like Gone with the Wind could reach almost 4 hours in length. Sure, dance halls remained popular places to meet, but they paled in comparison to all the hand-holding you could do in the dark of the theater as the talkies were playing. The 1930s also marked another slow change. Gender inequality began to be addressed. In 1937, the American author Marjorie Hillis published How to Live Alone and Like It. It was an etiquette guide for single women and a clear sign that attitudes toward unmarried women were tempering. Even though there was plenty of advice within the book about getting your man, the basic premise that it was acceptable to be alone remained radical. Divorce laws also took a step forward in 1937. No longer was evidence of adultery required to terminate a marriage. However, divorce still wasn't normalized. You still had to specify the grounds for divorce from a very conservative list. Acceptable reasons included certain illnesses, non-consummation of the marriage, or a wife becoming pregnant by a man other than her husband. Access to information about sex and relationships for women in the lower classes also improved. Magazines such as Woman's Own and Woman's Illustrated published relatively graphic articles, although, as the era demanded, they restricted themselves to discussing married couples only. The Second World War led to a wedding boom, but the temptations of the home front proved the downfall of many. In 1939, war came to Europe once more. Its impact was immense on the interaction between the sexes. Weekend affairs and casual flings became quite the thing, but then again, so did marriage. In 1938, 409,000 weddings took place in England and Wales, a number which rocketed to 494,000 in 1939 and 534,000 in 1940. The rush to marriage wasn't solely a British phenomenon. In the weeks after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, roughly 100 Americans married every day, 30% of whom were under 21. Some new wives to servicemen were even nicknamed allotment Annies, since marriage meant they secured $20 a month from the government. There's also a story that some women actively sought out American airmen to marry because widows received $10,000 in compensation should their husbands die. And of course, the mortality rate for airmen was very high. Once partners were hitched and the husband at war, letters became their main form of communication, much as in the First World War. By 1944, over 3 million airmail letters, 4.5 million pieces of service mail, and 500,000 airgraphs, letters photographed in miniature and delivered via airmail, were posted every week to and from the United Kingdom. But there were plenty of temptations on the home front. Despite all those weddings, illegitimate births rose from 26,574 in 1940 to 64,743 in 1945. Most famously, in 1943, 1.5 million American GIs landed in Britain to prepare for the invasion of France, but soon found other ways to keep themselves busy. These easygoing, gum-chewing studs proved to be real catches for the British gals. They were well paid compared to the British soldiers, an annual 750 pounds against the British Army's 100, and had plenty of cigarettes to dole out too. When the GIs left for France in 1944, an unbelievable 1/4 of all U.S. Army letters were sent to British addresses, and 20,000 British women registered to marry their American fiancés. But not everything turned out rosy. The combination of rushed marriages and infidelities led to increased divorce rates in Britain. They rose from 7,995 in 1939 to over 60,000 in 1947. STI rates among merchant seamen in British ports during World War II were so high that it was thought to be a Nazi plot. American culture affected how Britons met socially, and attitudes towards sex relaxed a little too. The war came to an end, but life remained tough. Rationing in the United Kingdom persisted deep into the 1950s, and income tax stood at double today's rates. As people sought to recover their lives, expensive dating was hardly a top priority. But the landscape of dating still evolved, most notably, once again, thanks to cultural imports from America. In the early 1950s, swing hits from the likes of Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald were the rage in dance halls. But, quite suddenly, in November 1955, rock and roll ended with Bill Haley in his Comets toe-tapping rock around the clock smash. The new hits were energetic and got youngsters bopping en masse. And as for the barely concealed sexual force of the lyrics, that really got the kids experimenting. It was the era of new sorts of celebrities, too. There was a sex symbol for every occasion. James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, Audrey Hepburn, and Cary Grant are famous to this day, while newspapers were cashing in on celebrity gossip, too. Simultaneously, there was an increasing candidness surrounding sex. In 1955, Jeffrey Gower published a survey. In 1955, Jeffrey Gorer published a survey which showed that 52% of the British population disapproved of young men having any sexual experience before marriage. The figure stood at 63% for women. The survey also demonstrated a strong class and age divide. Working class and young people were more forgiving of premarital sex. Interestingly, another study found 1 in 4 men admitted to having visited a prostitute, while 1 in 5 women confided they'd had an affair. The big change of the period for relationships came in the shape of sex education and contraception. Once reserved only for married couples, unmarried heterosexual couples now had access to them too, a sure sign that such relationships were becoming more acceptable. By 1955, Britain's newly formed National Health Service, the NHS, was providing diaphragms and condoms in clinics across the country. But these changes were just a start. American teenagers were discovering that dating could be fun for its own sake. That new sense of liberty was about to cross the pond. Lyrically, at least, Lovelorn Longing was out. Short-term sexual kicks were in. The 1960s saw a huge cultural shift and increased sexual freedom, but these changes weren't universal. The year 1967 marked a wide in many ways, not least because the Sexual Offences Act was passed. This decriminalized homosexual acts in private between consenting adults in England and Wales. The open peace and love spirit of the age was also exemplified by interracial celebrity couples like John Lennon and Yoko Ono, as well Michael and Shakira Kane. This increasing sense of acceptance went hand in hand with an economic boom. People now had disposable incomes, since both men and women were able to get steady jobs at younger ages. They spent their wages on the latest trends and fashions, which they used to form new identities, especially ones revolving around musical culture. One such grouping were the mods. This subculture was based in London, in the South. These sharply dressed youngsters listened to rhythm and blues music, and often rode around on scooters. Of course, subcultures were a great way to meet someone you could date. But peer acceptance also played a role. If your friends didn't like your date, you'd probably stop seeing her. Women who were mods, interestingly, had a strong sense of personal freedom and identity. They didn't have to be someone's other half to join in, as other groups might expect. It was a reflection of changing times. It wasn't just the youth who signaled the change. Sexual freedom across age groups became increasingly common. Most famous of all was the free love movement, which advocated for people sleeping together without expecting commitment. By 1970, there were about 50 established communes across Britain that lived according to this lifestyle. Nor were married couples left out. Swinging, kinky, and experimental sex found a place there, too. This sexual freedom was made possible, at least in part, by the widespread adoption of the contraceptive pill. A 1969 study found that of women under the age of 23, 48% had taken the pill. Despite this advance, sex education lagged behind. 1 in every 5 brides was pregnant on her wedding day, and as many as 50,000 illegal abortions were administered every year in the United Kingdom. Sexual liberation became increasingly normalized in the 1970s, but individual attitudes still varied. It's important to remember that mores didn't change for everyone at the same speed, even if society as a whole was gradually changing. In 1970, for instance, you could pick up a copy of the daily newspaper, The Sun, with a photo of a topless model in it, but an unmarried couple couldn't book a room at many hotels. Conservatism remained a powerful force, but, generally speaking, the sexually liberal trends of the 1960s continued throughout the 1970s. Magazines such as Jackie were published for adolescent girls with tips about young love, getting boyfriends, or what fashions pop star Donny Osmond liked on women. There was also a harder-edged scene of more radical feminist magazines like Spare Rib, which boldly discussed topics such as the technicalities of having sex when disabled. Forum, meanwhile, took a scientific approach toward the biological and psychological sides of sex. The 1970s ushered in glam rock, where androgyny reigned. Its stars, like T-Rex's Mark Bolan, were quiet at home sporting makeup, long hair, and skin-tight jumpsuits. In 1972, just 5 years after the decriminalization of homosexuality, David Bowie felt comfortable enough disclosing his bisexuality in a music magazine interview. That same year witnessed the United Kingdom's first gay pride march in Hyde Park. It was originally conceived as a protest against the continued discrimination against gay men and women. But for all that progress in some spheres of life, the era was still remarkably staid in many ways. The 1972 publication of Dr. Alex Comfort's The Joy of Sex met a fierce counter-reaction. The Daily Telegraph, for instance, saw it as little short of pornographic. This candid sex manual was heavily illustrated and even covered more taboo subjects such as swinging and group sex. No wonder it proved too much for the conservative press. Interestingly, the general public was pretty contradictory when it came to sex. A 1974 survey conducted by Forum magazine found young women in their 20s gave wildly varying answers on the question of a suitable age to lose one's virginity. And even then, 3 out of 4 women who got married between 1971 and 1975 admitted to having slept with their husbands before their marriages. The rapid decline of our morals is perhaps not such a foregone conclusion as many people would have us believe. Forum magazine. The 1980s established that dating could be fun, but the AIDS epidemic cast a dark shadow. By the 1980s, dating was seen as something cheeky and fun by the British. Nothing exemplified that more than the wildly popular TV show Blind Date, which was first broadcast in 1985. 3 contestants were lined up behind a screen and answered questions posed by the potential date partner. She would then make her pick based on their answers. The style of the show fitted with the cultural and economic The style of the show fitted with the cultural and economic zeitgeist of consumerism. This kind of fun came at a price. After all, 1981 had seen the launch of MTV, which pushed new materialistic ideals. Suddenly, sales of cosmetics and clothes skyrocketed. Whether it was designer clothes, tanned skin, or bottles of Bollinger, flashing your cash became all the rage. The decade marked huge progress for women, too. They finally began to get more power, both in love and at work. Nothing represented this new type of woman more than the power-dressing career woman. They weren't defined by their status as wives or mothers, but by their career successes. Attitudes toward homosexuality were also changing. A 1984 survey by Woman magazine found 10% of all women had had sex with another woman. Additionally, a majority thought it fine for boys and girls of the same age to start having sex. But not everything had changed. 3 out of 5 19-year-old women believed a couple ought to be in love before having sex, and 85% of unmarried women still saw love as their ultimate aim. The progress of sexual liberation in the 1980s was badly marred by the AIDS epidemic. In 1981, 5 young gay men died from a rare form of pneumonia in Los Angeles. Simultaneously, immune cell abnormalities were being found in the blood samples of gay men in London. The first UK AIDS-related death occurred a year later. Incredibly, no internal AIDS unit was established by the Department of Health and Social Security to deal with the situation until 1985, and the government didn't even bother to issue a press statement on it until 1986. Such treatment was symptomatic of the general disdain in the press and among the public toward homosexuality and the AIDS epidemic. This was matched by increasing numbers of homophobic physical and verbal attacks. The repercussions were soon felt in attitudes toward casual sex, both homosexual and heterosexual. By the late 1980s, 62.5% of women were of the view that one-night stands were plain wrong. Third wave 1990s feminism changed women's self-perception, while new forms of dating were rather impersonal. In 1991, the Daily Mail ran a report on a new phenomenon they called emancipatory impotence. Supposedly, improved healthcare provision had allowed older women's sexual libidos to flourish to such an extent that their husbands couldn't match them in bed. Clearly, even the conservative news outlets were aware that perceptions of women's sexuality were changing. Third wave feminism had arrived, and it was affecting the way women saw themselves. It could be even seen in film and TV shows like Clueless and Sex and the City, where female leads expected the men in their lives to love, support, and respect them. A whole generation of young women was taught to demand equality in romance and relationships. But all was not peaches and cream. Many women were rocked by a crisis of confidence. A 1991 poll for New Woman magazine found that 90% of all women thought of themselves as overweight, and 68% even felt that fat held them back. This dichotomy of female independence and self-scrutiny is perhaps best expressed in Helen Fielding's fictional creation, Bridget Jones. The character first appeared in a newspaper column in 1995, before a 1996 novelization hit the big screen in 2001. Jones's resolute struggle with diet, career, and romance hit home hard. Many people could empathize with a 30-something woman who didn't have everything together. The 1990s were also remarkable for the changing way in which potential partners were finding ways to meet. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, many women there wanted to get out fast. The mail-order bride business took off as they realized their escape ticket was marriage to a Western man. Speed dating became a thing too. It was invented in 1998 by Los Angeles rabbi Yaakov Deo. At first, he just wanted to make the matchmaking in the Jewish community more efficient. But before long, his idea had gained traction the world over. The decade also signaled the effect the internet would later have on dating. AOL's Instant Messenger chat room went online in 1997, later followed by Yahoo Messenger in 1998 and MSN Messenger in the following year. The thrill of excitement of chatting online using a clunky modem was just the start. The new millennium saw gains in the LGBTQI community, sexual liberation in print, and a migration to online dating. By the time the noughties rolled around, much had changed in the world of dating. For women, marriage and motherhood were no longer quite so central. More generally, people began to embrace their sexualities and preferences like never before. Over the previous 2 decades, LGBTQI communities, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, had at last begun to gain equality within society. That's a fast improvement. As late as 1992, the World Health Organization still classed homosexuality as a mental illness. In 2000, the Labour Party lifted the ban on homosexuals from serving in the UK Armed Forces. In the same year, the age of consent for homosexual sex was dropped from 18 to 16, to match the age of consent for heterosexuals. Soon after, the passing of the Civil Partnership Act of 2004 meant same-sex couples could enter a civil union under UK law. Then, in 2014, the Conservative Party bowed to pressure and legalized gay marriage. Elsewhere in the cultural landscape, the publishing phenomenon that was 50 Shades of Grey fantasies of many a woman. The 2011 book featured explicit bondage and sadomasochistic sexual content. 2 sequels followed, and the first volume was adapted for the screen in 2015. The book has now been translated into 52 languages, and 125 million copies were sold by 2015. Its success sparked a trend felt the world over. Sales of erotic accessories boomed. Fetish nights at clubs drew in more clientele, and searches for submission on adult website Pornhub increased 55%. However, the biggest shift of all in dating was the move online. Over 50 million people now use the smartphone app Tinder. It was launched in 2012 with a simple premise. A potential match's photo pops up, and the user swipes either left or right to reject or accept. Now, there are 850 million swipes every day worldwide. Whether users are looking fling or something deeper, apps like Tinder have made the world of dating a lot quicker. But does this abundance of possibilities undermine relationships? Actually, the online dating website eHarmony found, perhaps unsurprisingly, that couples who'd met online were less likely to divorce or separate. It's a different world of dating to our starting point in these blinks. From the formal heterosexual marriage ads of the 1700s to today's playful online dating sphere for all sexualities, it's been quite a journey. Final summary. The key message in this book. From society balls through two world wars and the cultural revolutions of the 1960s, the impulse to meet and fall in love with others has remained essentially the same. But as societal pressure has loosened its grip, the methods for finding lovers have become much more individually driven. Today in Britain, both women and men can celebrate a tremendous range of sexualities. They can finally date for whatever reason they choose. What to read next? 121 First Dates by Wendy Newman. From reading these blinks, and no doubt from your own experience, you'll know that dating can be an exhausting ordeal. As Nikki Hodgson has shown, there's no perfect way to find the ideal match. This is where 121 First Dates comes in. It's a guide to online dating. Author Wendy Newman shows you how not to get overwhelmed by it all, and how to do it right. This book will help you build a profile, prepare for your first dates, and deal with all the difficulties and hassle that might appear along the way. I've got to go take care of my clothes. Back in a tick. Ugh. Get out of here. I think one of those dryers isn't working quite as well as it should. So I'm going to be smart and actually get all this stuff out of the way. Last time I got lazy and I just let it sit. This is not a good. Anyways, the time is going really quickly. There's stuff I'd like to do today. I still contend I'm not using my time very effectively. And it hurts. Stings. Damn it. I wish I had more space. Fucking mess. Yeah, that's it. This is what I get for space here. It sucks. Hey, here we go. Wow, I should have done that earlier. Damn. Alright, I know in the future. Can't trust the auto exposure on these things. Joji Obara? No. I have no idea who that is. Tell you what, let me look real quick. Okay. I don't know. I will hesitate to pass judgment. It's because I have not personally heard him expressing anything of the sort. I can hardly keep up with myself, and I barely move anywhere at all. Anyhow, I'm gonna hit the cat. I'll be back in a tick. Gotta take care of some needs and then buckle in to do a little bit of work. I think they're looking to play badminton at 4:30, which is less than 2 hours away. I'll be back. Oh yeah. Man, I want more space. I want more space and less things. Need to get a hold on all this. Okay. We'll leave it like this for now. It works. Okay. So coming up, I've got assignments to knock out. Fuck me, man. All this little shit. Okay. Let's get this punched in real quick. Assignments, paper due tomorrow, 12:30, I think, for my finance class. And apparently I also had this individual write-up to do for class. This paper was due on, I think, the 16th. I need to pass. I need to pass all the classes so that I can just get my degree and move on. And that is my job here. Pass. And learn in the process. Let's see if this works. Yeah, it works. Okay. Did what I expected it to do, and we go here. Close this. The fuck? Wow, what on earth is going on? I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that it's because I'm computer is dangerous on both disk space as well, yeah, so it's really disk space that's a killer right now. And I have too much stuff open in all these tabs. I need to do something about this. Wow. Yeah, it's causing me to do rework right now because I have too many tabs open. And like I scroll down here, I'm gonna see that it's missing, right? Okay, well I lucked out this time. I need to close out of some shit. This is not good. Close out of some stuff and free up some space. This is really, really bad. I wonder if this will help. I don't think it really helped. It's like that won't make a big difference either. I can't work right now. I cannot work because I have too much stuff open. I'm trying to work on too many things at once. This is a problem. Gotta focus. So, let's close out of all the other extraneous stuff. Why do I have this thing open at all? Oops. Malam, I want to say. Why do I have this open? I've got just way too much shit open. Also, I think that like I've definitely learned a little bit from the time I started looking at all of this stuff to now. And try to condense this stuff. Christ. A wasp. Okay, nearest neighbors. Some ML stuff. Oh, close that. Bash scripting guide. I don't even know what's important right now. Do I need to write a bash script right now? No, I'm not working on it right now. Let me close it. CTF, I think we've moved past this. It's just, I'm at this point where, so for a while I was spending quite a bit of time just looking at these CTFs and kind of pursuing the cybersecurity track. And I'm still interested in it. I'm still interested. But I also, at this point, I can also take what I'm learning at work and begin applying it to my personal projects. There's some synergy there. And now that I have a little start at least on the cybersecurity InfoSec side. Alright. Hello. Let me just make notes, close this stuff down. Pico, cybersecurity, Pico CTF, here we go. Alright, this was looking at solutions for individual ones, write-ups that other people had performed. PicoCTF.com. Some stuff. What's this? I think, okay, it came from a book on reverse engineering. Linked me over to a course offered by CMU, and all the lecture notes are up here. Pipes. Still a lot of memory pressure. Still too much. Stack Python. shit. Now I have more motivation. Object-oriented programming. My god. Oh my god. I have so much stuff open here. Recognize speech, transcribing. Partners supporting the oil and gas industry with AWS. Fuck. Hello. Onka. Hello. Do I have something in my ears? I have probably the same amount of stuff in my ears as you do, if not a little bit more. But yeah, I'm sitting over here picking at them. It's possible. It's possible there's something in my ear. I'm trying to find out. Also, that was really drastic. There we go. Safe, simple way to manage passwords for your team. WTF, man. Yes, can I help you? Close this one. No improvement. Swap used. Down to just about 1 gigabyte of swap used. This is really bad. This is really, really bad. Unacceptable. I've got way too much shit open. Alright. Whatever. Let's see if we can just skip past all of this. Also, what's this?
Hey, don't worry about it. I managed to catch the bus, so I'll just use the bus. But don't worry about it. You seem like you have a busy day ahead. Don't want to be an inconvenience, but thanks anyways, though.
I can do this all day. Okay. I love you. We haven't met yet. I love you. Man, this, Okay. Let me just pull up what I've got so far, and then take a look against the notes that I wrote, and just kind of go from there. I might have to do some reading as well. I hope I put this down somewhere. Yeah, I did. Okay. Paper number 2. Wait, what? Provide a brief definition of corporate governance. Provide 2 examples of corporate governance and how they might positively and negatively affect decision making by managers. 2 examples of corporate governance. Have you done a song? What do you mean, have you done a song? Now choose one of your corporate governance examples. Explain how it might interact with macroprudential regulation. Start by providing a brief definition of macroprudential regulation. Yeah, macroprudential relates to the systemic effects of systemic effects, as opposed to micro. In contrast with microprudential regulation, I remember this was brought up in one of the readings, but I haven't been doing the readings. Go figure. So it's time to dive into all of this shit. Courses.missouri.edu. Let's go. Some notifications popping up on my phone and I can't see anything anymore. What am I doing right now? I've got a paper to write for a class I'm taking. It's called Management of Financial Institutions. I've got about an hour and 20 minutes that I can put into it. And then I want to move on. And today I'm going to submit this no matter how shitty it is. Okay, I need to do a better job with budgeting my time here. I think I don't know. Maybe I'm spending too much time socializing and not really getting enough back out of it. It's weird. Life is strange. Corporate governance of banks. Okay, we'll have this and this to go back and forth between. Okay, so micro doesn't exist here. What? Can I search in this document? I probably have this downloaded somewhere, but well, let me just download the document. Let's get out of all of this. Here we go. No, yeah, this isn't the article from which the whole macroprudential stuff emerged. It's from this. Yes, macroprudential approach to financial regulation. All right, 2 papers pulled up. Oh, fuck. Awful. Let's try this. I probably would get through this faster if I just transcribed at this rate instead of doing this, but I will do this once just to see if it helps. Yeah, maybe it'll help. Hansen, Kashyap, Stein. A macroprudential approach to financial regulation. I don't know how to do our citation. A macroprudential approach to financial regulation. Yeah, cool. Corporate governance. You did finances? That's good. Oh, we're gonna like into all of it. Ah. Oh well. Oh well, what the hell. Some things stick, some things don't. I've just not been really engaged as a student this semester. I don't want to be writing this or reading these things, but I will. Oh, God. Good God. Okay. What the fuck? What the fuck even right now? This thing sucks. I just want the hand tool so I can move around the place. I can pan around without writing on shit. Where's my hand tool? I think it's because it wants everything, it expects everything to be driven through, yeah. Go fucking figure. Piece of shit. Sometimes I hate technology. Few publishers. Okay, Anglo-American model and Franco-German model. Hey. Hey, Daniel. Hello, Lucas. I hope your pasta turns out well. I am trying to read a paper. I have to write on this stuff. But the objective is just to pass. It's about these two issues, right? So they differ in their treatment of these two issues. They differ in their treatment of whether corporate governance should focus exclusively on protecting the interests of equity claimants or whether it should expand its focus to deal. I'm just gonna borrow a lot from this reading because it'll save me a little bit of time. Differ in deal with the problems of other groups called stakeholders. The second issue begins with the assumption that okay. Whoops, I guess I didn't like that. Hello. Okay, there we go. Importance. Non-shareholder. Thank you, thank you. Sten, hey, welcome. Welcome back. So, compare and contrast. Anglo-American view model takes the view exclusive focus should be maximized shareholder value, should be ignored unless it's legally required. Oh my god. Is there a fucking table in here somewhere? Okay, well, no. I'm just gonna borrow this stuff from the introduction. Again, grab and choose one of your corporate government examples. Explain how it might interact with macro-prudential regulation. Let's focus on the Anglo-American model. I have a feeling that's what everyone else will do too. Salutary corporation is central. Nothing with non-shareholder constituencies without certain paradigm different on the basis of national. Proceed to a discussion on particular corporate governance. It's at a 100%, dude. That sounds good. Particularly banks and work central bank. Okay, so it's getting heavier and heavier already. Nice. I will look into ways to provide shirts. I'm curious about this one company called Teespring. I saw that they have, I must have heard of them in the past, but recently I was on YouTube, maybe a couple weeks ago I was on YouTube, and I saw there's this like a merchandise shelf that YouTube opens up to content creators on its platform who have something like 10,000 subscribers. And the company Teespring has some exclusive, I think it's an exclusive deal with YouTube creators. So that if YouTube creators refer sales through Teespring, you'll get $1 extra for every sale of a shirt. Which could be quite significant. But the thing that really impressed me about that platform was how low cost it was compared to running through someone else. So the profit margins are a lot higher, but you've got to skimp somewhere, right? And I'm kind of curious what the difference is. Like, what do I do? Maybe I order a shirt from Teespring and then order a shirt from a competing platform. Maybe. And then choose something, decide, hey, I like this one, and then go with it. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I may do that. Or perhaps somebody else has already done that. I'd be surprised if somebody hasn't actually done such a thing. I don't know, there's some like short articles written about t-shirt fulfillment companies. I looked at one, but it's been a while. It's been a minute. Easy dollars. Authentic is whenever you see that message, so and so has joined, it's always in Periscope. I think that folks watching on Periscope, while they can interact using chat, the messages that we type into chat don't get relayed back over to them. It's a limitation of this restream chat. Or maybe it's a limitation of the Periscope API, whatever. Depends how you want to look at it. Should concern this. So, okay, it's one differentiator. Let's keep going. At the outset, strange, one theoretical construct about how differences do exist. Quite useful in framing analysis. Begin to overview the topic, then this is a complex web of contractual relationships. The defining principle of American corporate governance is that an implicit term of the contract between shareholders and the firm is the duty of managers and directors to maximize firm value for shareholders. Yes. Legal manifestations of these contracts are fiduciary duties of care and loyalty that officers and directors owe to shareholders. I wonder if there's any workaround. The overlay. I would think the overlay is the strongest workaround. But the problem with having an open overlay was that it meant folks could spam it. And you could end up having stuff there that you don't want. And that's why I wanted to make things, like, it's one of the reasons why I thought, okay, Discord. Setting it up through Discord makes sense. Kind of thinking ahead. Like right now, it's no problem. Chat has so little volume that it's really easy to keep up with. There's so little volume. It's good. It's good. It doesn't become too much. Yeah, so it's always trade-offs. So, of course, for this paper, it makes a lot more sense to just focus on the Anglo-American model because it's what we've discussed in class. Do the easy thing. Certain principle that should do usually look at the scopes and should expand in the case, special case banks. Okay, so yeah, so their argument is for this. I'm like catching up to stuff that we discussed in class starting last week. Because I never read this paper. It means I'm shortchanging myself when I show up to class. I should be ahead. I need to turn. I would like to stop being like this. It's not doing me any favors. But school, even these 2 classes can end up expanding to take a lot of my time. Like, fuck, man. What about the rest of life? I have no idea what that notification was. Fuck. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. Start by providing a brief definition. Choose 1. Explain how it might interact with macroprudential regulation. Whoa, why is this not passing stuff in half the time? My computer is bogged down. They always end up like this. My computers, my poor computers. Oh boy. I'm gonna end up with a pretty shitty paper. I can feel it already. Economic nature and purpose of these fiduciary duties. Separation of ownership and control. Problems of banks. We brought up this thing, conflict between fixed claimants and shareholders, debt holders and interest stream. Oh boy. Not feeling good about this. Like, there's time. What I ought to do, what I really ought to do is take advantage of the fact that I have a print quota and print off these papers so I can read them and I just like highlight the important bits. Even though I don't like paper. It just makes it a lot easier if I only have a single screen to work with. It's like you can have many screens. This as many screens as you have sheets of paper. Let me go back to this. So the regulation that we talked about, we brought up nice. Time to eat. We brought up in class FDIC and a Camel's rating system. And pull in everything. Pretty much study stream. Student life stream. Poor student life. I'm not doing it right. I'm trying to cram stuff, which is not good. I'm just gonna end up in shitty stuff. But if that's the goal is just to pass, then I think it's sufficient. Maybe I shouldn't sweat it too much. I definitely can't afford to miss deadlines though, like I've been doing. Not cool. Missing deadlines, not participating in class discussion and missing the deadlines. It's not gonna go well. But it's just like um, 9 out of 20 on a recent paper. Mostly because it was late. It wasn't a good paper to begin with. I mean, it was not a good paper. There was nothing cohesive about it. It was just, it kind of answered the questions, and that was it. It's like most of the shit I toss together. It's not meant to last. Just get the job done. I'm not proud of that. I think we condense this stuff and then just bring it into the paper. Just do stuff on time. Good idea. Yep, that's pretty much it. Remember, yeah, let's bring this in. Dude, for some reason this is okay. There we go. Finally, I think it's because my computer is the memory is all tied up right now. Sometimes the big thing is I just question the importance of any of it. The point of doing any of it at all. I mean, yeah, it's good to have a nice job, a good paying job. I don't know if Andrew found an adapter. I don't know. If I was Andrew, I'd probably take a while to get around to doing it. That's me. Choose one of your bones, but how am I turning back? I think we just keep going through this paper. Okay. Yeah. We fix commands. There's just like the paper itself is already pretty dense. There's so much going on because it's a well-written paper, a decent paper. Keep this up front and center. How it might interact with the macroprudential regulation. Examples of how Oh, right. That's why we spend so much time talking about the market for corporate control. Okay. Because of FDIC, how much? Explain how much. This is pretty complicated shit. There's a lot going on. I want to finish this though. Read. Why is this so bad? Oh my god. One. I'm tempted to use this. I'm tempted to use more devices because I cannot read this properly here. It's frustrating. Economic nature and purpose of fiduciary duties. low-key memes. I want to take a bio break. And yes, time is valuable. Here we are doing homework. just mean it's so one example of macroprudential regulation. I wonder if they would count this. Well, drop 93 frames. I guess I don't have any tabs, any windows open. Jesus. kind of cold in this room. And time is... The amount of time that I budgeted to look at this is almost up. Fuck. He did describe his dream, huh? How are we gonna fund this dream? Artificial intelligence says, make a system. Provide things of value to people that will pay you. Coordination. I have no examples of this here, but I think that the FDIC would be classed. FDIC would be classed as falling under macroprudential regulation. Is it? Because it deals with this collective action problem. It's not, what is that not looking at right for the payment? Excuse me, please go away. Okay. It's like Basel 3, which we wrote about last time. So I guess FDIC is something entirely separate. For this, it doesn't even get mentioned. It's a very, very short capital requirements. Leverage caps, fixed or business cycle, counter cyclical buffers. I guess we just go back to Basel 3. They're really, really... I guess I should give a shit description. It's tough for me to keep up with what's going on there and then also stay focused with what's in front of me. Like, I'll end up doing a poor job on both. I'm kind of curious what you guys were discussing, but I'll have to catch up later. It's more likely to be on favorites. to focus. That's it. Not making much progress with this. I think it's because I'm switching between tasks. Like, what I should do is skim through this thing once. Instead, I was pulling up some other stuff just to see if I might find specifics. And I think the specifics are all in the last one I wrote. I touched briefly on some of the specifics in this Basel III thing. I have a fucking headache, man. I don't want to do this. It's a chore. Shit is a chore. This is worse than doing the laundry. It should be similarly easy, but there's a little bit more backing it here. Probably. But it's also just distracted. Like, I put myself into a situation where I can be easily distracted. Out of the corner of my eye right now is the iPad. When doing studies, I'm probably best off, like just working, I'm probably best off just isolating myself somewhere. And then in case of this type of shit where I have a paper, I think I may just print off a copy of the paper. Even though I want to get away from paper, like, it's still useful, especially for just reading. You can read anywhere and kind of underline, highlight. I don't even know how to highlight. I really fucked with those back in grade school. Anyways, time is pretty much up. I want to go play badminton. And I'll probably try to put in some more time on this afterwards. Like after badminton and dinner. But I do... Fuck, man. Not happy. One, I need to give myself more time to attack these things in the future. Set aside some time consistently just to kind of sit and go over this stuff. Actually prepare a bit. Because this stuff, it should practically write itself, but my own What I've got is just flimsy. I take notes during class. I'll go over this again later. Homesick. I don't know if I'm homesick. In a way. I miss Paul. I do miss home. But there's some good to being here as well. You know, opportunities to meet more people. But it's all got to be balanced out. Sometimes I get a little lost. I feel it's easy to spread myself too thin. Really have to focus on. Anyhow. Get away. I can get away with this. And this. It's easy to spread oneself too thin. Endless distractions. Are we good? Truthfully, when I go play, I may end up frustrated on the court as well. I usually do get pretty frustrated playing, even though it's just a game. I want to get better at it. To what end, I don't know. Just gotta remind myself not to take it too seriously. It's alright. Yeah. Look, for me, I don't think it's so much like, I don't know. It's a number of things. Like, yeah, I'd like to be better, and then I want to see more progress. I'll keep looking out for it. It's probably there. I'm probably improving, and I'm just not giving myself enough credit for it. Either that or it's all shit. Let's see. So, is it time? Yeah, it's 4:26. I'm gonna get on out of here. Switch gears mentally. Thanks for hanging out. catch up with you again. For now, bye bye.